I was always told a few unspoken rules of running a finance-based YouTube channel. They were, don't swear, keep your clothes on, and whatever you do, don't challenge the f.i.r.e community. They're a serious bunch and are not to be messed with. So, mess with them I did. Now, time to get my kit off then. F.I.R.E. Fire. Some may say it's the process in which substances combine chemically with oxygen from the air and give out bright light, heat, and smoke. Others say it's a burning sensation. You can get medication for that, right? It can be shooting a gun or losing your job for sending those naked pictures to your boss. But amongst the smoke, itchy thighs, firearm fanatics, and the queue at the employment office, there are a different breed of people. They are driven, hell-bent on one thing and one thing only: catching bent coppers. No, sorry, that's a different show. Hell-bent on one thing and one thing only: early retirement. So f.i.r.e. stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early, and it's a lifestyle movement that is focused on gaining financial independence and retiring early. How do you know if someone is part of the f.i.r.e. movement? Well, believe me, they'll tell you. Sorry, that's probably not very fair. They are a passionate bunch in my experience. The concept of wanting to gain financial independence and retire early is not a new concept. f.i.r.e. have just given it a name. They've branded it. Now, when I say I confronted them, it wasn't to challenge something like the 4% rule or the Trinity study, which are lots of the concepts that the whole movement is based upon. The idea of f.i.r.e. itself is actually a pretty simple concept. It's a simple maths exercise. How much money do you need to get to retire early? It's not easy, but it is a simple concept. What I've been challenging is the whole concept on what drives people to want to gain financial independence in order to retire early. Now, I'm a member of a number of f.i.r.e. based communities, as I sort of have one foot in their camp, and I find the whole thought process quite interesting. So, without further ado, let me share with you exactly what I said and what my challenge was. I have been doing some philosophical thinking of late, going a little deeper on f.i.r.e. I got thinking more about the why. Firstly, I know for many of us, me included, it's not really about retiring early, more simply having the option to if we wanted to. You see, this is the first concept that many f.i.r.es, no idea what they call themselves. This is the first point that they would contest, that most people that are following the f.i.r.e. methodology actually have no intention of retiring early in a traditional sense. They simply want to get themselves in the financial position where they could if they wanted to. They are essentially using money to buy themselves options, and that I like. Anyway, back to what I said. So I started to think more about why. Why do we want that option? What's the bigger picture here? What's our motivation? Well, simply it must be so that we can spend more time doing the things we really enjoy, with the people most important to us. It's about enjoying and cherishing our time. You see, it's not actually money that we should be chasing. It's the options and freedoms that money unlocks. Lots of people fail to make that distinction and end up hoarding more and more and more money until they die and they're the richest person in the graveyard. So here is my challenge to those in the f.i.r.e. community. So I wonder, For most people hell-bent on achieving FIRE and the sacrifices that it entails on today's money, it must be because so many people hate their jobs. Or at least don't enjoy them. We spend so many hours of our lives at work, more than we do with our families in many cases. So surely the answer is not FIRE at all. It's a red herring completely. Find a way of doing a job you love. You wouldn't need to retire early or make all of the sacrifices today that makes it possible to. What I am essentially saying is why? Why do you want to retire early? Surely the only reason to want to retire early is to spend more of your time doing the things that you love. Find yourself a job that you love and you wouldn't have to make all the heavy sacrifices on today's money in order to try and achieve that freedom later on. So there you have it. And yes, it caused a reaction exactly as I expected. However, I have to say, by and large, it was quite a positive one, and the conversation and back and forth that followed with members of the community was a pretty positive one. In amongst the threats of being sacrificed to the gods, of course. No one threatened to sacrifice me. We're coming to get you. To be honest, I was deliberately taking a bit of an extreme stance with what I said in order to try and get a conversation going and really try and understand the thought process more. Sometimes you have to poke the bear to make friends with it. I think I might have made that up. So let's have a look at some of the replies and the conversation that followed. So in amongst lots of people saying, it's not about retiring early, it's about having the options too, which I literally said in my opening piece, there were some more interesting comments. I would never recommend anyone exist in a job they hate. Life is about the journey. However, it is wise to plan for financial security. Not many people love their work forever. Some people get ill and can't work, and many people find their industries move on without them or they are no longer wanted. Now there's some real merit in lots that's said there, to be honest with you. Nothing is forever. The only constant in life, as they say, is change. So it can't be a bad thing to have the financial strength to pivot if you need to. Can't really argue with that. Someone else tried to introduce me to the Japanese concept of... God, I'm gonna have to try and pronounce this. Here comes all the offended dislikes. I'm sorry in advance. Ikigai? Ikigai. Ikigai. I'll put it on screen. Which essentially is all about giving your life worth, meaning, or purpose. But then no sooner had I been introduced to that concept as lots of other people came pouring in to say just because the Japanese have a word for it does not mean that they do it. They in fact have one of the most toxic work environments in the modern world. So I'm none the wiser. I was then accused of having Stockholm syndrome. This was great. I had, just to get the proper definition, Stockholm syndrome occurs when hostages or abuse victims bond with their captors. He said to me, why do you want the option of more work? What's the bigger picture here? What's your motivation? Looks like Stockholm syndrome to me. Listen, I never said I wanted the option of more work. All I said was if you loved your job, you wouldn't have to squirrel every penny away and live on rice and beans. Shut up, Dave. In order to ditch work early. One final point that someone said, which I thought was interesting, was, in my humble opinion, anything you have to do for 40 hours a week in order to pay your rent is not going to be enjoyable. Even if it was your favourite pastime to start with, you'll tire of it quickly if it's enforced. Maybe that's just me. What do you think of that? I'm not really sure I believe that, but I didn't have too much time to dwell and give it much thought because my Stockholm syndrome friend was back. He's not done with me just yet. He came back in to chip away at me to say, if going for financial independence involves making sacrifices, you're probably doing it wrong. And here is the biggest thing I just do not get. So, I went back to the gang. I find the suggestion that FIRE can be achieved without sacrifice slightly bizarre. It's opportunity costs of sorts at the very least, albeit more of a lifestyle or experience nature. In order to get to a financial position where early retirement is possible, it takes a war chest of money. Naturally, of differing sizes between different people, depending on what lifestyle you want or need. To get this war chest, decisions, sacrifices have to be made to direct the money to that cause rather than something else. You could put that £5,000 to shaving a few months off your working life, or you could go on a holiday or do something special for the kids, for example. My thoughts simply are, if you are someone that hates their job and therefore is living a tough, frugal existence now in order to get out ASAP, I would redirect my energy to solving the job problem first. Guys, I want to continue this conversation. I need your take on this. Drop me a comment in the box below. Am I going mad, or do I just need ikigai? Ikigai. Ikai. IK.